Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Journey to Peace, Chapter 18. Okay, for those, in case you haven't seen the first few videos of Journey to Peace, I suggest you go view those now, as this is a continuation of that story. They stood around the table. Ezrin had insisted they go through the plan one more time before the group left. 4 kingdoms, 4 shadow assassins. Ezrin started calmly as they all studied the map. The borders of the different kingdoms were marked clearly, with the capitals, major cities, and large towns all marked on the map, along with the last known location of the shadow assassins of the respective kingdoms, as of the last letter Ezrin had received. We have 2 people that can connect with them on an emotional level, which is what we need to do. The catch is that even though the rulers will trust me as King of Katalis enough to let said 2 people enter, they don't trust them alone. And who's to say that the people will agree? Ezrin paused, glancing up to study the faces around him, all creased with determination. Normally, we would have suggested splitting up for efficiencies. But since we have no idea exactly what we're dealing with, and we just don't trust the random citizens of the other kingdoms, the 5 of you will be traveling together. Your first stop will be the northern deserts in the kingdom of Neolanda. Ezrin pointed at a mark on the map, about halfway between the Neolandan Katalis border and the Neolandan capital. This is the last known location of the Neolandan's shadow assassin. And since they seem to be trying to navigate to the capital and major cities, it's likely they'll take one of these 2 routes. He traced 2 different but similar paths on the map. After Neolandan, you'll travel south to Durn. then southwest to the mountains and foothills of Delbar, before finally south to the swamplands of Evenir. Callum nodded. We have the plan as. Can we go now? Ezrin smiled, marching around the table to hug both Rayla and Callum before letting them go to hug Amaya. When the young king pulled away, he smiled. Yes, but one last thing. Callum let out a silent groan, but nodded for Ezrin to speak. Be safe, all of you. Ezrin sent a pointed look Rayla's way before giving a similar one to Ruan. And take care of each other. Now you can go. They all nodded and turned. Their horses, Rayla and Ruan looked thrilled at that prospect, although Ruan didn't seem to mind nearly as much as Rayla, had already been prepared, and they mounted as soon as they reached the courtyard. Claudia was waiting to send them off with good lucks from both her and Soren, and then they were off. Amaya and Gren rode at the head of the party, with Rayla and Callum, who were again sharing a steed, followed behind them, with Ruan taking the rear. Does Ruan have experience with horses? He doesn't seem to mind them. Callum finally had to ask after an hour of silent riding. No, but he's ridden other creatures a lot more than I have. I thought you said it was mainly Earthblood elves that rode creatures. I said mainly. Not the only elves to ride creatures was Earthblood elves. There's that familiar teasing tone in her voice as she spoke, and Callum could picture the smile on her lips. So what kind of things do we shadow elves ride? She let out a thoughtful hum. Kinda depends on where and who they are. Some will ride moon phoenixes, or shadow griffs, or, of course, numerous other domestic creatures. What's a shadow griff? Do you know what a hippogriff is? Yeah, it's a big magical creature that's a mix of eagles and horses, not unlike griffins, who are part eagle and part lion. Lots of old bedtime stories about them. All right, well, take a hippogriff and get rid of the wings. He thought for a moment and then nodded. Okay. Now, mainly replace the hair from a horse's have with soft feathers. She paused a moment to allow him to think of that. Now, make it blue to a very dark, almost black blue. He blinked, very suddenly understanding the shadow part. Okay, so where did Ruan get experience with them? She shrugged. Friends. She seemed to shut down suddenly, and he backed off. So, I know you probably don't want to talk about it, but what was the journey to Catalyst like? With the other assassins, I mean. She thought for a moment in silence. Very different than traveling with you and Ez. I was the newest member of the team, so I was trying to integrate into an already built team. Luckily, I already knew Rian, and I met the others once or twice at least, so that made it easier. It was quieter, other than mealtime when we really talked, but we all cared about each other and looked out for one another. Honestly, until a couple of certain events when we almost reached the castle, I'd say I considered them all friends. And then everything fell apart. He wasn't really asking. Yeah, pretty much. But we're going to break this curse, and I don't know what that means exactly, but we're going to give them justice. He smiled. We are, he agreed. She flashed him a smile over her shoulders. And then we can travel back to Zadia. I'm sure Rian will want to visit home. We can go back through the breach and go to the city we didn't get to visit last time. She sounded happy to be thinking about that sort of thing in the future. And even if they didn't know exactly how far away it was. I like that. Do you think Rand would mind?
She shook her head. No, honestly, he'll probably find you pretty funny in an elven city.
He chuckled. Probably.
She smiled. I'm glad you got the chance to meet him. I didn't think you would.
So what's the other parent? So who's the other parent?
Oh, both much more and much less terrifying.
How does that work?
You'll understand. Let's just say that, unlike Rian, threats aren't outright stated. They're implied.
He swallowed. So I should worry.
No, it takes a lot more to upset Tinker, and he's not a trained assassin.